All right, Eric Mangini is now joining us live. All right, Eric. I saw Sean Payton go out and clobber Nathaniel Hackett. Robert Saleh fired back. What did you make, first of all, of Sean Payton sort of in school, like in the industry, firing away? It had a Parcells feel to it a little bit.
Well, when you've got a lot of money and you've had a lot of success and you get a little older, you tend to get a little bit more honest with how you feel, and that's what it seemed to me. The biggest takeaway that I had was the comments he had about the Jets being just interested in winning the offseason. And then he compares what the Jets did to what Washington did a bunch of years back, where they went and got huge names that really guys were done. They were done, but they paid them like they were still stars. And that to me was the most sort of surprising dig that he took, because now is he implying that Aaron Rodgers is washed up? Is he saying that Aaron Rodgers is like those guys that Washington signed that were great names but can't play anymore? So of all the things he said, that's the one that took me by the biggest surprise.
Yeah, he's made a lot of money. He's had success. And by the way, coaches can be gruff. Generally, you don't fire. Somebody insinuated that Sean Payton is now seeing that this job is harder than he thought, the roster's not as good as he thought, and he's sweating a little. Do you buy that?
Well, if that's the case, I don't know why you do what he did, because all you've done is you've increased expectations. When you say that last year's coaching job was one of the worst in the NFL, look, they won 5 games. They lost 9 games by a touchdown or less. 4 of those games were in overtime. So now you set the bar. You didn't lower expectations. You said, hey, this is a really talented, good team that dramatically underachieved because how horrific the coaching was, which tells the fans and everybody else we're going to be really good this season. So if he's sweating it, I don't know why he would have taken the approach that he did with his comments.
All right. So I do want to talk about Hackett and Rodgers. If you look at Nathaniel's last 2 years in Green Bay, which I discussed, they were very good. Aaron was not the same quarterback last year. He also had a year where he succeeded with a pretty middling guy, Blake Bortles. And so my takeaway is not everybody, you've probably worked with guys. Vic Fangio, I've talked to people in the league that are like one of the smartest defensive guys in the league. Maybe Mike Zimmer. Not everybody wears well or wears the head coach hat well. Is it possible Hackett's a really great coach? He's just not a head coach.
Yeah, look, it's not an easy job to have. There's no manual that you have to be a head coach, and sometimes it depends on the situation that you come into and how ready you are for that situation. You know, oftentimes what really helps a good young head coach or a good head coach, and especially a new head coach, is a really, really talented quarterback, and that's why the rub with Hackett is everybody expected, with Russell Wilson being Russell Wilson, that he inherited a great situation. He came into a great situation, and then when it turned out the way it did, now you take a step back and say, okay, how much of it was Russell Wilson being a problem and maybe not being the player he used to be, and how much of it was coaching? And I get what Sean said, the pre-snap penalties, the delay games, those things they're inexcusable, and that really has nothing to do with how good a coach you are. That's part of being a manager, an organizer. Those things, they should never happen. Those should never happen.
Yeah, that's where I thought Sean was on the mark, is that team just looked literally disoriented on offense in crucial situations. So speaking of inheriting a quarterback, Joe Burrow. So Zach Taylor was on the ropes 2 years, didn't do anything, inherits Burrow, and it changes. So yesterday I see him have a calf injury. He runs out to the right. Listen, it's hot, it's humid, it happens. But it does point to something that Sean McVay really started several years ago. Sean McVay was fewer practices, less pads, no hitting in preseason during games. I don't want starters playing. That doesn't mean you don't have intensity, but he's really scaled back what practice and camp means. If you had a star quarterback, what is appropriate, what's not? How much do you want Burrow in there, or Herbert, or Mahomes?
Well, when you look at that injury, it could have happened on any play. It could have happened during OTAs. It could have happened anywhere. He was literally untouched and just scrambling to his right. Where those risky, or the risk comes in preseason, is when you've got your quarterback working against second and third team guys, and someone gets too close to the quarterback and his helmet hits his hand, or they fall on the ground, they hit his knee. Those are the situations where you're really worried. When you're padded, there's some intensity, and you've got guys that are probably not going to be in the NFL playing defense against your first group, and they fall into the quarterback. But the ones where, you're running out of the pocket, nobody's touching him, those are almost freakish. It's hard to account for those, and you do so much work trying to figure out what the right load balance is for every player. But I don't think anybody's totally figured it out.
So I think one of the things that's tough as a coach is not only do you have an owner to deal with, and owners are mostly successful guys, they're all successful people that are unrealistic on expectations. They all think they know more football than they do. It's easier than it actually is. But I do think there's also another part of being a head coach that's problematic. You have to have the trust of the players, and you can love a running back, and the GM's like, yeah, analytics say we can't sign Austin Eckler to a second contract, and you can often get the brunt of that. The player will view the coach as aligned with the GM, you're all the bad guys. You won't pay me. What is happening with running back now often falls on the coach to figure out in the locker room, where Barkley, Jonathan Taylor kind of view we versus them being coach, staff, GM, executives. Where do you fall as a coach on what to do with running backs who are wildly productive, but analytics say you can't overspend for them?
Well, that's the value of having a GM, and that's the value of having some separation between the coach and the GM, because as a coach, you want to be able to say, hey, I'm fighting for you. I'm trying to get you as much money as I can. They don't really think they can move forward on it. You can couch it a little bit, but with the market for running backs and the market for any position, it changes every year. There were years where you couldn't draft a running back high. Everybody moved away from that, and then it cycled back, and some backs were drafted high. And there's years where guys don't get paid, and there's years where guys do get paid. It seems like there's more guys on the franchise tag and more guys looking for bigger contracts. But the market is what the market is, and if someone desperately wants to keep you and you've got leverage, then you're going to get paid. And the only option these guys have now is to withhold their services. But the Le'Veon Bell experiment was so bad, that looks like a terrible option.
Right. So I'm watching the Netflix documentary on quarterback. Cousins, Mariota, Mahomes all come across as good guys. They're juggling newborns, adult family members, crazy diets, chefs, wives, balanced football, screaming coach. It's a lot. I always knew we put a lot on their shoulders. I'm actually shocked that people in their 20s and early 30s can handle all of it. I'm kind of taken back by it. You're probably not surprised at all. The ability to compartmentalize for Patrick Mahomes, to me, is stupendous. If you've seen this series, what do you make of it? Did you think about this a lot when you coached, is how much now is on the shoulders of that one position?
One of the reasons I love shows like that, Colin, is it does humanize the players that we talk about. And oftentimes you can look at players, you can look at coaches, and you lose track of all the other things that are going on in their lives outside of the game that's played and the evaluation of that game. And there is a lot. And we ask so much from quarterbacks in terms of not just in terms of performance, but in terms of understanding the whole offense, the situation, the layers upon layers that are put upon him. And with a guy like Mahomes, what's really sold me on him is how well he's handled success. Not only has he handled it graciously, but he's also taken a long-term view at his legacy, at the team, and it's very Tom Brady-esque. He's willing to take less money to make sure that every single year they can retain talent and they can compete for a championship. And that to me that's a special trait in a society and sports world where it's all based on how much can I get. He's different, and that's amazing for the Chiefs.
Finally, let's just hold you to it now. I said earlier the over-under on the Jets is 9.5. I do believe they play the Dolphins twice late, and because Tua's injury history, it's not your typical injury. Concussions are different. If you twist an ankle, bang a shoulder, you can play a week or 2 weeks later as a quarterback. If Tua gets another concussion, month minimum, he's out. Minimum with the medical staff, the media pressure, they're going to sit him for a month minimum. And I do think, he's a smaller quarterback. Their O-line's not great. There's a lot of good pass rushers in that division. The Jets, the Bills, the Patriots get to the quarterback. I do worry about it. I look at the Jets. If they can get through that first 6 games, 500, I think it's a 10-win team. I really do. When you look at the schedule, you look at the moving parts, what say you on their season?
A 10-win team, it better be better than a 10-win team. If it's not a 10-win team, then there's probably going to be a new head coach. There's going to be a new head coach. They've got to win 10 games. You've got a angry Aaron Rodgers with an offseason, a coordinator he knows, players he knows, a system he knows. You've got a defense that was 4th in points allowed. You've got 2 young, encouraging running backs. You've got a lot of positive things going for you. 9 wins, take the over. It should be more than 9 wins, and if not, there's going to be a new administration in New York.
How about that? Look at J-Mac. Ear to ear grinning from J-Mac. It could not be. You and Mangini, sometimes I have to talk you guys down.
Can you call him Mangenius because he is a genius talking Jets?
I think you've got such a good situation there. How many games did they lose that were close last year? And the quarterback situation was dismal. If Aaron Rodgers can get anywhere close to where he was 2 years ago, I mean this should be a really tough team week in and week out, and should go deep in the playoffs.
I'm going to have to revisit my Jets prognostication. Looks like. Hey, it's great seeing you. You got a nice summer tan there, Coach. Good seeing you again.
Thanks, Colin. It's great seeing you, too.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the arguments. I got him at 10. I thought that was realistic. Yeah. You got him at 14.
I think we got to start booking him for a day after every Jets game because it's going to be a fun season. Oh, my gosh. Aren't you excited just hearing this?
I'm excited for the league. I'm excited for Kenny Pickett. I'm excited for Brock Purdy.
Kenny Pickett, huh?
I think it's all fun.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.